All right, you guys are good to go.
Chris, if you would like to start. You're muted if you just want to unmute yourself.
You unmuted, but now you're muted again.
Yeah, you're muted again.
Yeah, Chris, you're muted.
There we go.
I was trying to use my space key, but it didn't work. Thanks for your patience. Good evening, everyone. We're meeting tonight under extraordinary circumstances. Due to state and local emergency orders requiring social distancing, we amended the Rochester Preservation Board bylaws to allow us to conduct this hearing as authorized by the governor's and mayor's emergency orders and to waive other requirements in order to proceed with this online hearing. These waivers permit us to hold this hearing by teleconference with no in-person attendance, allow applicant presentations by teleconference, and require all public comments, both in favor of and opposed to application, to be submitted in writing by email or by hard copy document mailed to the zoning office or deposited in the secure drop box located in the link entrance of City Hall. All written public comments were all required to be submitted by 5 p.m. yesterday. Although this hearing's been altered for some of our normal procedures, many things remain the same. All the normal notifications for this hearing, including mailed notice, publication, and the posting of notice, were followed. All the normal timeframes for applicant presentations and comments in favor of and opposed to the application remain the same. And most importantly, this board will hear, review, and make decisions about all the applications with the same diligence and using the same standards as required by the zoning code. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that when a case is called, the applicant will be allowed 15 minutes to present. The applications are posted on the city website and available for the public to review. All applicants were advised to ensure that their applications were complete and included all information that they intend to present at this hearing tonight. As the application is presented, staff will, as reasonably possible, show the pages of the application the applicant is addressing. Following our normal procedure, the board members may ask the applicant questions. If during the hearing, the board determines that substantial new evidence has been submitted by the applicant during the presentation or is given in response to questions by the board, the case will be adjourned to the next announced hearing date to allow the public to review that new evidence and to submit additional comments. After the applicant's presentation is completed, staff will read into the record any comments received at the comment deadline that are not already posted on the city website. After all the comments have been read, the applicant will have 5 minutes to offer any testimony and rebuttal. The board will commence deliberations and voting after the public hearing for each agenda item, with the exception of any applications that are being adjourned. Please also note that if your case is approved today, a written decision will be mailed to you within 15 business days. The decision will inform you of the next steps to complete the approval process. Before we open the first case, please note that we're all volunteers. I'd like each of the board members to confirm their presence and purposes of establishing a quorum for this hearing and to introduce themselves and mention their area of expertise. I'll do that in alphabetical order for the board members that are here. We'll start with Ed Kane.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ed Kane. I'm a resident of the East Avenue Preservation District.
Thank you. I've already introduced myself. My name is Christopher Coretta. I'll be chairing this evening. I'm a real estate professional and I live in the Grove Place Preservation District. Jim Deviney.
My name is Jim Deviney and I live in the Cornhill neighborhood where I serve as the historian for the neighborhood.
Thank you. Gerald Gam.
Good evening, everyone. I'm a political science and history professor at the University of Rochester, teach courses in urban history and live in the East Avenue Preservation District.
Thank you, Gerald. And last but certainly not least, Kirsten Solberg.
Hello, I'm Kirsten and I am an architect and I live in the Browncroft neighborhood in the city.
Staff?
And I am Chris Snyder. I am staff to the Rochester Preservation Board. And then to Tom.
I'm Tom Worth. Hello, everyone. I'm from the legal department of the city, here to answer any legal questions as they might arise.
Okay. Thank you, members and staff. Chris, will you introduce the first item on the agenda, please?
Yes, I will. This is the public testimony for case 1 A-022-19-20 for a certificate of appropriateness. This case was held from the October 2nd, 2019 hearing. The address is 30 Church Street, City Hall, and the purpose is to remove 11 wood windows from the west facade of City Hall and to replace them with new aluminum clad wood windows.
Great, thank you. Is Mike Konopka and Laura Civiletti with us?
Yes, I'm here,
Mike
and Mike Konopka, I think, is going to give us presentation.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
here. This is Mike Konopka.
Okay, great. I just need to swear you in. Do you both, Mike Konopka and Laura Civiletti, solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. And we are ready for your presentation.
All right. As you mentioned, this case was originally heard last year, October 2nd, 2019. At that point, the project was tabled, and the comments from the board there were three basic comments. One was testimony from one or more window experts, restoration specialists. Two was testimony and documentation of window conditions. And three was alternative insulation methods for the windows. What we resubmitted for this tonight's hearing was, first of all, a window assessment, which went through the entire City Hall. I think in the window assessment, you'll see that 107 of the windows we looked at, they represent 178 of the total 247 windows on each of the four elevations. So the point to that is they are a representative sample of all windows. And they also represent the window types, the predominant window types that are there, which was the basis of approval from SHPO, which we'll get to later. To summarize the window assessment, the windows on the Fitzhugh side are the worst. Those are the ones we've designated as deteriorated beyond repair. And then they get progressively better to the south, to the east, and then to the north. So the windows that you're looking at are affected mostly by rain and snow and the wind direction on the Fitzhugh side. So the less they're affected by the weather, the better condition they are. Needless to say, at the window condition that this is being judged for, the initial 11 windows that the city wants to replace are the ones that we have deemed deteriorated beyond repair. In looking at that, we also went ahead and this was done over the last 2 years. We talked to two restoration specialists, both of which who said the windows can be restored. The issue that we had with that is really twofold. None of the restoration specialists can solve the root problem of deterioration, which is twofold. Basically, it's the condensation caused by the storms, and the second one is the flat sills. And on one of the exhibits that we submitted to you in the window assessment, you'll see the windows in the atrium in City Hall, and you could see how flat the sills are by those pictures. Those are the same windows If you go, I believe, to the last page, Chris. If you, yeah, nope, keep going. Well, back one, right there. Yeah, you could see in the picture in the lower right-hand corner how flat the sills are. So that is the predominant point of deterioration, which causes water, snow, ice to sit there, thus deteriorating the windows. Now the sills, I have to make this point, and this is verified by another architect, cannot be replaced. The whole window frame has to come out to replace the original sill. And even if you replace the window sill, what would happen is you would have to, in order to slope it, you'd have to cut down the bottom sash, the bottom rail of the lower sash, which really would destroy the character. So this just goes to one of the root causes. So getting back to the restoration specialist, while they can repair this, no one can give a good assessment of cost, time, labor, and how much wood would need to be replaced, because quite a few of the windows, the wood is deteriorated beyond repair, would have to be replaced, whether whole rails, styles, whatever, Dutchman. So none of them can do that until you actually issue a whole set of documents to get that done. So we have to take with a grain of salt the assessment that they can be restored. In addition, like I mentioned, the sill cannot be replaced. The other issue that came up in the questions from last year was, and to read it from the statement that we received, insulation methods or technologies that act as an alternative to the existing internal storm windows for superior insulation performance on existing wood windows. I believe we mentioned last year we would never consider an exterior storm because it is in no way consistent with the original design character, would totally change the character of the window. So the alternative we looked at, and this is in the revisions in response to the original application on page 3, was something that's called, really today, Marvin Windows, several manufacturers come up with this. It's called an energy panel, which would require us to remove every sash from City Hall and basically route the existing frame, which is very weak as it is right now, and insert what's called an energy panel, which is a piece of glass with a small frame on it. So we looked at that and deemed that that was impractical on this scale to accomplish. And furthermore, the second option that we had originally looked at was leaving the existing frames in place and replacing the existing sash with new sash, which were insulated. So that kind of voids this energy panel idea, because you could get a new insulated sash that solved the problem, and it would be a sealed sash. The energy panel is not sealed. So we eliminated that because that option did not solve one of the root problems that we had, which is the slope sill. So that's why the restoration option was eliminated. As I went through before, the replacement sash was eliminated, and that's why we went to the new window unit, which was the only option that solved the root cause of deterioration. So that's where we are right now. So basically, to summarize this, we feel that the new window units are the only options which, one, eliminate storms and flat sills. And both restoration specialists agree that storm windows will further or continue to destroy the original sash. Number 2, we want to eliminate any further damage to adjacent historic wall and cornice plaster due to windows leaking. 3, we want to follow the SHPO guidelines, which obviously, since they have approved the replacement windows, they feel that we can match the existing character, profile, setbacks, in the majority of window characteristics to match the existing windows. And in the end, I believe we'll achieve a crisp, sharp profile of detail that as you continue to paint, restore, consolidate, replace components, you'll never get to that point. And even the process of removing asbestos caulk is going to somewhat gouge and be very difficult to do without destroying some more of the rope trim that's around the windows, because it is asbestos caulk from the window to the masonry frame. In the last option or the last goal that I think is solved by this, it presents the least impact and disruption on City Hall relative to scaffolding and disruption to the occupants. And we want to just point out a couple other things. This is an 1880s building, and its windows were not done with today's HVAC system, especially the units that are directly below the windows. They intensify the difference between cold and hot from winter to summer, and the temperature differential, which causes condensation. And those units are there to stay. It cannot be changed in City Hall. And the original building was not done with today's HVAC system, which is basically lending to the deterioration of the windows. And one of the interesting things in going to City Hall so much that we looked at was the entry doors to City Hall are all aluminum and glass, a typical storefront system. I'm not sure if today, with the original wood doors, if they would ever survive with today's amount of traffic through. So our point to that is at some point the windows outlive their usefulness and their ability to deal with whether it's today's systems or traffic. And that's why we're at the new window units, which we think not only can match, but be a much sharper, crisper profile, obviously match the color of what's there, and really serve to keep the occupants comfortable. So that's a summary. I can answer any questions you might have, but that's a summary of what we submitted in response to last year's hearing.
Okay, Mike, thank you very much for the presentation. It was very thorough, and it's much appreciated. We'll start with questions from the board. We'll start with Ed Kane. Ed, do you have any questions?
I agree too. It was a thorough presentation. I have no questions.
Thank you. I don't think I have any questions. I'm next in line alphabetically. I don't think I have any questions. Thank you. Jim DeVinny, questions?
No, I have no questions. I thought that was a very thorough presentation.
Mr. Gam, any questions?
I do. Mike, first of all, thank you for the presentation. I agree it was really thorough and actually answered a lot of the questions I had. I was one of the people who pushed very hard last time you came before the board for you to talk to somebody who specializes in window restoration. So I see you spoke to Steve Jordan, and Steve is very well regarded locally and nationally for his work on windows. What did Steve suggest doing? So Steve said, according to your testimony, the windows could be repaired. I assume that you had a back and forth with him and talked about the sills and talked about insulation. What did he recommend?
Well, in order for him to truly comment on this and what he would do, he would have to have a set of documents, as I mentioned. He agreed that storms, in some ways, on some elevations based on its orientation, have a much more negative effect than others. So he didn't really have an answer for the storms. As far as restoring the windows, he said basically what they would do is take every one apart, bring the sash to the shop, you infill the window, and then you work on the frame in place. So you're doing half of the work in the shop and half of the work, while in the frame that's on City Hall, and you'd have to have a replacement window or opening for that. So it's kind of, when I talk to him, it's kind of an unlimited open scope of work that he would need to get it to a point where it's presentable. So, and again, how much, I couldn't have an intelligent conversation with him because we would have to estimate, and I think we estimate at some point, maybe 25, 30 or more % of the wood has to be taken apart, has to be removed and replaced. So I'm not sure where these guys would go from there. Nobody would have a specific answer to, you know, what in the end they would achieve on this.
So Mike, I just want to say I really appreciate you following up with 2 different window experts. That actually helps me a lot in thinking about this case. And I just want, for the record, to say I'm pushing hard on it because our guidelines say that an original window may be replaced only if it's beyond reasonable repair. So it helps me very much in knowing that you spoke with both of them. About the sills, so you keep coming back to the sills and that the sills are flat, that they're level, and that causes ice and snow to build up against the windows. I'm assuming the sills and windows are about 130 years old. Am I right? And if I am right, doesn't that mean they've held up for a very long time with level sills?
Yeah, they've been painted over many times, but I think you can see there's a couple on the south elevation which are covered with aluminum. And the other ones you can basically poke through with a screwdriver. The wood is punky and it really needs to be replaced. But you're right, they are the original sills. And a lot of times the paint that's on there, and I'm not sure which of the 2 previous consolidations that the city did, some of the epoxy coatings that are used are almost a membrane or a film, which help to prevent deterioration. So the rot is already in it, but you've covered it up. So they are old, they are original. None of them that I'm aware of have been have had pieces of wood or anything replaced. They just keep getting painted over and painted over and painted over.
Okay, so Mike,
Plus they're old, plus, I'm sorry to interrupt, Gerald, but plus it's old growth. I mean, they don't grow wood like that anymore, unfortunately.
well, and that's part of my worry. Part of my worry is we're taking out old growth sills and replacing them with new materials, which might not.
Rotted old growth cells.
So, okay, so Mike, following up on that, my last question is about materials. What is are the current sills wood and the current windows wood? That's my understanding, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so what would the material be for the new sills?
All the new windows would be pine, but they're covered with aluminum. And I don't know if do you have, Chris, I'm not sure who kept the window sample from last time.
Mike, just so you know, we're all in our homes. So even if Chris has the sample, we can't actually hold it tonight.
It may still be in the office.
I was hoping he could hold it up.
So I had a different, so Mike, my question is this. So the sills are currently wood, correct?
Yes,
And the windows are currently wood.
correct. And the new windows would be wood, but they're all covered, they're all aluminum clad windows on the outside. The inside is a stained wood.
So why not do solid wood windows and solid wood sills if we're trying as hard as we possibly can to restore the structure, restore the windows to original condition? Why not do solid wood windows and solid wood sills?
For the simple reason that the aluminum can be painted in a custom color to match the existing, and Marvin has gone through great detail. Chris, can you go back? Do you have the original submittal where we had a drawing in there?
Is this the one you're looking at?
No,
All the pages are numbered in this application.
The original submittal from last year.
Oh, I did not include the original submittal, just the staff report.
All right, I guess I'd have to try to explain this. The new windows, when you look at the original drawing that we submitted last year, they're wood windows with an aluminum cladding that match the profile. They have the rope molding, they have the same setbacks, they have the same sash dimensions as the existing. The main difference is the sill is sloped. So when they've made these, and this is one reason why SHPO had approved this, when they made these, they match the existing profiles almost exactly. So why would you do a wood window when you can't get old growth wood? When you can cover it in aluminum, it comes with a warranty. You don't have to paint it, and that rope trim that's out there matches it exactly.
Okay, so if you're asking me why would I get a wood window, my answer is this is the preservation board, and our responsibility is to maintain the historic character of neighborhoods and buildings, and this is one of the most important buildings in the city. And the original material of the windows is wood. When people make repairs to their homes, if they have wood windows,
Hi, this is Laura Civiletti. I would just, can I just make a comment about that?
Please do.
I think it's important to note that the wood that is available now for window construction is not the old growth. It is pine. It is not as durable as the material that was available for the original construction of the building. I would also comment that the original design of the windows was with the flat sills, the single panes, as Mike had alluded to, really does not address the issues with HVAC and the modern comfort of the current occupants.
So Laura, with all due respect, I will. I'm assuming that the windows will be replaced. Oh, can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Chris,
Yes.
can you hear me now? So I'm assuming the windows are going to be replaced. So I'm not talking about HVAC anymore, and I'm not even talking about the level sills. I'm talking about materials, and I understand that old growth wood is not available. My preference for wood window is how it appears and how it takes paint, and that it's the difference between putting aluminum siding on a house or putting new cedar siding on a house. The cedar today available may not be as good as the cedar available in 1890, but it's still going to be a much better material to match the original than putting aluminum siding. So that's why I asked if that was something that had been taken seriously.
For the sake of time, because we have 7 cases tonight, which is a lot. If we could just stick to questions with all due respect, I'd appreciate it so we could move on. And we can talk about the, opinions and all that in the comments section, as long as you're okay with that.
Okay, Chris, my only question was whether they had investigated seriously an alternative of wood windows matching the same design. It sounds like the answer is no.
I think my last comment on that is that the same maintenance issues that allowed the current windows to deteriorate to the condition that they're in now, we're hopeful with city staff, city limitations, that this would be a more maintenance-friendly solution in the long run.
Plus, we did look at wood windows, and for some of the reasons that Laura mentioned, we eliminated it. But because the profiles of a painted surface, this is not a wood a surface that you see wood grain. It's not a transparent finish from the outside. It's a painted surface. Because the profiles could be matched so precisely, that's why we decided to go to the clad window.
Chris, may I ask just one more question?
Please.
So Mike and Laura, I agree the profiles should match exactly. Was there any reason profiles couldn't match exactly in wood?
It's just not a typical option that's offered today at this scale with this many windows from a maintenance standpoint. But to answer your question, it probably could be, but it's not something at this scale that's typical today when you have a less maintenance option that matches the profiles. And it's a painted surface. It's a solid color.
Okay,
I
any other
think this,
questions?
I think the scale of the replacements is also an important point, given there's 200 and how many? 207 windows in City Hall that all need attention.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Gerald?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kirsten, any questions for Mike or Laura?
My only question was going to be if SHPO had approved the profile, and you said that they have. And I will refrain from comment until the comment section.
Thank you, I appreciate
Their
that.
approval letter is in the submittal.
Right, and I remember that now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Snyder, public testimony statement?
Yes, there is no public. I'm sorry. There is no public testimony for this case. So we can move on to the deliberations.
Great. Okay, let's start with Mr. Kane. What are your thoughts on this, please?
My thoughts are that what's been proposed is a reasonable alternative.
Okay, thank you. I would agree with Ed. I think the fact that SHPO also approves this says a lot. Although, you know, we are separate, but I still think that means a lot. And I think the profiles are extremely important, that the profiles are going to be as close to exact as possible. I don't have an issue with the way it's presented. I'll keep it short and sweet. Mr. Davini?
No, I agree with you and Ed. I think that the SHPO comments are very important to our discussion here. And I think the appearance is very important to the final product. So I'm not opposed to what they're proposing.
Okay. Gerald?
So I'll keep it short and sweet too. These windows and these sills have lasted 130 years. And I am very, very reluctant to replace them. And if we are going to replace them, I'm reluctant to replace them with aluminum clad sills and windows without at least understanding better what would be involved with doing it in wood. So that's my concern.
Okay. Kirsten?
I think that due diligence has been served in exploring the other options, and I appreciate that. I've used these Marvin custom windows on historic projects before, and I think it's an appropriate solution, and they do a great job at matching the profiles almost exactly, and especially having SHPO's approval, as it's been said, means a lot. Seeing that this is a twofold problem and that the flat sills obviously need to be repaired, I don't think fixing these windows piecemeal is going to be a long-term solution for these windows, and that you really need a modern full window system to make sure that they, not just the window itself lasts long-term, but the cavity itself of the window is being fully protected. And as it's been mentioned, it's just not, for lack of a better way, typical solution to repair 200 windows with a wood window these days. This really is generally the correct solution for a historic property that can't be repaired but replaced. That'd be my comment.
Okay. I greatly appreciate everyone's comments. They're important. That's why we're a board. Okay. So we've done all our comments. We've done our deliberation. Would someone like to, Kirsten, would you like to give me a motion?
Sure. I motion that we, for case number A0221920, for the certificate of appropriateness to replace 11 wood windows from the west face of City Hall and replace them with aluminum clad wood windows, with the understanding that this would be a precedent for the remainder of the windows for City Hall. Understanding that due diligence has been served in exploring replacement options, and that this is the best approach for a long-term solution.
Kirsten, if you were willing to modify your motion and just leave it to authorizing the replacement of the windows and understanding it's a precedent, I would support it. The additional language you're adding, I'm less comfortable with.
As a precedent?
So, a precedent, the additional language about due diligence and alternatives being explored, I'm
Okay.
less comfortable with that, but I am comfortable with the basic motion.
Okay, so I will say that I am promoting that the wood windows of the west facade, the 11 wood windows, are replaced with new aluminum clad wood windows, period.
And that we understand it's a precedent for other windows.
And it is a precedent for new windows throughout the facade of the city hall.
Kirsten, do you feel that? It's important for you to, your emotion is exactly how you feel.
Well, no, yeah, I mean, I do think that they have done their due diligence. I mean, there's never a perfect solution for any of these questions. It's, as an architect, they have done their homework. They've consulted people who specialize in these windows, and it has been their opinion that this is the best approach. And from my experience, this is the way that most windows of this type, even a building of this stature, is typically approached when windows are replaced.
Yeah, so Kirsten, I should apologize for interrupting. I was persuaded by your remarks, Kirsten, and I was persuaded to vote for just a simple motion. If you want to offer the more detailed motion that you offered, you have every right to offer it, and I shouldn't have interrupted.
Okay, so where's our motion, Kirsten?
We'll start from the top.
Start from the top.
All right, I'm putting forth the motion to approve our case number A0221920 to approve the removal of 11 wood windows from the west face of City Hall and replacing them with new aluminum clad wood windows, and that this would serve as a precedent for the remainder of windows to be replaced throughout the facades of City Hall.
Second.
A motion has been made by Kirsten, seconded by Gerald Gamm. I will call for a vote. I'll call for each member. Ed Kane, do you vote yay or nay for this motion?
Yay.
Ed Kane is a yay. Christopher Coretta is myself. I am a yay for this motion. Jim Deviney?
Yay.
Jim Deviney is a yay. Gerald Gamm?
Yay.
Gerald is a yay. And Kirsten?
Yay.
Kirsten Solberg is a yay. It's unanimous. Very good. Thank you very much. We'll close this case, and Mr. Snyder.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Snyder will call the next case when he is ready.
The next case, case 2, file A-010-20-21 for a certificate of appropriateness, is for 60 Hawthorne Street to install a 7.5 foot by 7.5 foot hot tub in the rear yard of this single family dwelling. All board members present have visited the site. I would also like to add, because I missed this on the first case, all board members present have also visited 30 Church Street City Hall for case 1.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Mummery, are you with us?
I am.
Okay. Mr. Mummery, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. We are ready for your presentation.
Okay, I hope to make this short and simple for everyone tonight. As Chris stated, we're applying to put a 7.5 foot square hot tub in the back corner of a property we just purchased that we're very pleased to live in the area. It's going to sit behind the house, obstructed from street view and public view on all 4 sides because our entire property line is treed and hedged, and also covered by the house and garage.
We like short and sweet like that, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'll do a round robin for questions, and I'm going to start this time with Kirsten. you have any questions for the applicant?
Only question would be, I don't know much about hot tubs. Do you have to prepare the ground in any fashion? Are you putting a concrete pad down or does it go directly on the dirt?
They're going to just put a slight crusher run underneath it just to
Okay.
balance.
Okay, that's my only question. Thank you.
Certainly.
Thanks, Kirsten. Next would be Gerald. Do you have any questions?
I have no questions.
Thank you. Jim Davini, any questions?
No, I just wanted to just establish the location on pages, well, I guess 10 and 11. It shows that one corner right in that house, and I assume that the hot tub is going to be snugged into that corner, and there is some ground cover there now and some plantings and stuff, and I assume they're going to remain around that.
That is correct. They'll be relocated by, two hostas will be relocated by a foot.
That sounds fine to me. No more questions.
Okay, thank you. I have no questions. It's pretty straightforward. Ed Kane, any questions?
I agree. It's straightforward. No questions.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Mr. Snyder, any public testimony statement?
I don't believe there was. Let's see. No, there was no public testimony for this case.
Okay, very good. So we will deliberate. Start with Kirsten. What are your thoughts, comments?
Obviously, we couldn't get into the backyards of these properties, but looking on Google Earth, etc., it looked like this is pretty well tucked away and it won't be a visual disturbance to the public or neighbor, so I see no problem with it.
Okay, thank you. Gerald, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Kirsten. This is tucked into the backyard. And given that it's not visible from the street or to neighbors, it seems completely appropriate.
Great, thank you. Jim Davini, what are your thoughts and comments on this?
I think the proposal is fine. I have no objections to it.
Okay, I would agree with all of my colleagues. Ed Kane?
And I agree with all my colleagues too.
Thank you. Ed, did you want to give us a motion, please?
Sure. Case A 0102021 60 Hawthorne Street to install a 7.5 by 7.5 foot hot tub in the rear yard of the single family dwelling.
Do I have anyone seconding that motion? Gerald, I think you have your hand up, so that means you're seconding it. So a motion was made by Ed Kane and properly seconded by Gerald Gam. I'll go through and take a vote individually. We'll start with Ed Kane. Yay or nay on that motion, Ed?
Yay.
Ed Kane is a yay. Christopher Coretta is me. I'm next. I'm a yay on that motion. Jim Davini?
Yay.
Jim Davini's a yay. Gerald Gam?
It's a yay.
Gerald is a yay. And Kirsten?
Yay.
Kirsten's a yay, so that is a unanimous yay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mummery. And this case is closed. Mr. Snyder will introduce the next case when he's ready.
The next case, case 3A-011-20-21 is a new case for a certificate of appropriateness. The applicant is Reza Ormanesh, the project architect for 498 West Main Street. The purpose is to demolish an existing second floor addition at the rear of this property, adjacent to Clark Alley, and to reconstruct a new addition in the same area for use as a studio and office in association with the first floor art gallery in this mixed-use commercial building. All board members present have visited the site.
Great. Okay. Mr. Ormanash, are you there? Anna, can you tell if Mr. Ormanash is with us?
Looks like he's muted. He is here. Reza, if you could just unmute yourself.
That corner. All right, I got it.
Okay, great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Ormanash, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. Thank you. We're ready for your application or for your presentation.
Yes, basically, I came to the board a couple of times in the past. Last time, the board approved what was presented. The only thing that when I went back to the owner wanted to change. And I said, well, it's kind of too late. So I told him that I have to go back to the board. He says, that's fine. So what happened that there were two parts to the addition on the back. One was to basically take the existing gable roof and just extend it all the way to the edge of the property. And then there was another one which was perpendicular to it. He, after getting some price for that portion, he said, I don't want that. Or I want a greenhouse, but the greenhouse up there is not a proper use per se. So finally he said, okay, just get rid of that. Just give me the extension of the portion that the gable roof is extended. So that's why I'm here for. Also, what happened that couple of things, the two windows on the west side, they're eliminated. The north side, still, we have the three windows and one on the attic portion. On the east side, there's two windows and a door. And then basically, the siding is the cement fiber clapboard, which is matching the existing pretty much. Bottom, still, we're still going to renovate the structural portion of the whole first floor on that back portion because the structure is pretty much deteriorated badly. And then the bottom, as you see, the bottom on the first floor, we're proposing block and brick. On the side, you see that I gotta have a rated wall, but that's just wood with a 2-layer of chipboard on each side, and then the non-combustible cement fiber clapboard. That's pretty much in a nutshell.
Okay, great.
And the model, I cut the model up a little bit. I don't know if it's, I don't see that I don't see it, but I don't know why. I don't know if you can see it or not. My camera is not on and I don't know why.
Okay.
Maybe something is off. Oh, here. But when I click
So
on it,
Mr. Harmnash,
There you are.
last time you presented, this is Tom Worth from the Law Department. Last time you presented, you had a model that didn't quite match what the proposal was. Is the model you're using this time actually match what you're proposing?
I believe last time what we proposed and the model matched. That's my personal opinion. But what happened, the portion that he didn't want, it got removed.
Well, I don't want to argue about last time, but you're saying that what you have this time matches what you intended, what you're proposing.
Yes, sir. The model and the drawings are presenting what we are proposing.
Okay.
I'm just going to rotate it. So we just only adding that portion that the gable end is coming. That's it.
Okay.
It's
Tom,
much
Jim had a-
simpler structure now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. We're going to ask the board members if they have any questions of you. So we'll start with Ed Kane. Ed, do you have any questions?
No, I think I see what's being proposed. I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I have any questions right now, but we're going to go to Jim Deviney, please.
Yes, on that page 10 that is on the screen right now, I'm looking at the bottom floor has a garage door, and now it's all brick going over to the right. And I assume that is where the mural is now. That's right on the alley, Clark Alley.
Yes, sir. Where the hand was moving that you were showing, that's where the mural is. It's a block wall, existing CMU wall, a block wall, which has been hit like 2-3 times. And there's one crack, which is obvious. There's another crack. It's kind of a little bit bigger than a hairline crack. Yes.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to be sure I understood it because I got confused the last time. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Davini. Mr. Gam, any questions?
Just a really quick question. I just want to confirm because the print is tiny. The brick is in fact real brick, yes?
Yes, sir. It's a 4-inch standard brick matching the existing brick color.
Okay, and the clapboard is cement fiberboard, right?
Yes, it's a cement fiberboard, a clapboard, which is going to be painted to match. I believe existing clapboard is a green, dark green color. So we're going to try to match that.
Okay, and the roof is what?
And the roof is kind of grayish green. It's kind of more green, a little bit of touch of gray on it.
And
So
what
we-
are they? I'm sorry, are they architectural shingles?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, that's all.
Nothing, what I presented is nothing has changed as far as the materials, everything. Basically, one portion of the addition got eliminated.
Okay,
The
thank you very
windows are
much.
still wood windows with clad wood windows, stained from outside. Of course, it's out on the outside is clad. The color is going to basically a tan color, and then but the owner wanted to have a dark, light green color around the window trim around the outside. I guess they have painted a couple of their windows light green, and that's what he wanted. I said, that's fine. It's just kind of really intense color as far as I'm concerned. So I on my proposal, I'm saying dark green with kind of a tan border around the trim around the windows on the exterior.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no further questions.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Gerald. Kirsten, any questions?
Just confirming, I think what I heard, that the material selection is identical to what was previously proposed, meaning the windows and the plank and the brick, it's all the same.
Yes, ma'am. Nothing has
Okay.
changed. Just one section of the building got eliminated.
Got
Because
it.
he
Okay,
wanted to
thank
come
you.
and sit on the roof and look outside. So that was the issue.
Okay.
Okay. If there are no other questions, we will move on to staff. Any public testimony? Chris, Mr. Snyder?
There is no public testimony for this case, so we can move on to the deliberations.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. We'll start with Mr. Kane. Any comments, thoughts? What are your thoughts on this project?
My thoughts are that the project as modified from the last proposal is fine. Or this
Okay.
project standing on its own is fine.
I like the simpler version myself too. Jim Davini,
Yes, I like what I'm seeing now.
Mr. Gam.
Same here. I think in terms of materials, in terms of design, it's entirely appropriate for the site.
Good point. Kirsten?
I agree. I think the integrity of the material and the form is consistent.
Okay. Mr. Gam, could I get a motion, please?
I would be delighted to give a motion in regards to file number A-011-20-21, an application for a certificate of appropriateness for 498 West Main Street to demolish an existing second floor addition at the rear of this property adjacent to Clark Alley and to reconstruct a new addition in the studio and office. That this application be accepted as presented.
I second.
A motion has been made by Gerald Gam and properly seconded by James Davini. I will go down the list and I'll call the vote. We'll start with Ed Kane.
I want to interrupt really quickly.
Sure.
Gerald cut out during his motion, and I want to make sure I just want to clarify just for the record. So your motion was to approve it as submitted, correct,
Yes,
Gerald?
my motion is to approve it exactly as submitted.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So a motion's been made by Gerald Gamm and properly seconded by James Deviney. We're going to go down. I'll call the vote one by one. Ed Kane, are you a yay or nay on that motion?
Yay.
Ed Kane is a yay. Christopher Coretta, myself, I am a yay on that motion. Jim Deviney?
Yay.
Yay on that motion, Jim Deviney. Gerald Gamm? Oops, you cut out again.
I am a yay.
Okay, Gerald Gamm is a yay. And Kirsten Solberg?
Yay.
Kirsten Solberg is a yay, so it's unanimous. Thank you very much again, sir. And we will technically close this case. And Mr. Snyder will introduce the next item when he's ready.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case is case 4A-012-20-21 for a certificate of appropriateness. The applicant is Joseph Dasta, who is the property owner of 95 Merriman Street, and the purpose is to remove a locust tree located between the porch walkway and the driveway in front of this 3-family dwelling, and to replace it with a low-growth peony bush. All board members present have visited the site.
Mr. Dasta, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Dasta, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give is in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And we are ready for your presentation, please.
I don't have a lot to say beyond what was just said. The locust tree is growing between my walkway and the driveway on the strip of land that's about 3 feet wide, and the root system has damaged the sidewalk and it's damaged the driveway, and there's no room for the diameter of that tree to get any larger. And these locust trees can get quite large. In fact, I have another locust in my backyard that's about 4 times that size. I think this was probably just a rogue tree that was let grow. I don't think anybody would intentionally plant a tree in that spot.
Okay.
And so to save it, to save the property from further damage, I'd like to remove it.
Okay. Thank you for the short and sweet presentation. We appreciate that. We'll start with questions from the board. Kirsten Solberg, any questions?
No questions.
Gerald Gamm, any questions?
No questions at all.
Thank you. Jim Deviney, any questions?
No questions.
I have no questions. Pretty straightforward as well. Ed Kane?
I agree. Straightforward, no questions.
All right. Very good. Mr. Snyder, any public testimony?
There is no public testimony for this case, so we can move on to the deliberations.
Okay. We'll start with Kirsten. What are your comments or thoughts?
I think that the removal makes sense. I understand that it's a tight strip of planting ground and that tree's only going to get bigger. So I understand why this is being proposed.
Okay, thank you. Gerald, your thoughts, please.
My thoughts are similar. This tree is simply growing to be too big for the spot in which it's planted. And I think we'll all miss the greenery. It's nice having greenery in the district, but I agree with the homeowner. It is a tree that's now and the driveway. So I have no trouble supporting removal.
Okay, thank you. Jim Deviney?
No, I'm fine with the proposal as stated.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, I think it's just out of proportion. I think it'll look much better with planned replacement. So I would support it fully. Ed Kane?
I agree.
Okay.
just, yeah, did anyone have any thoughts on the replacement and whether or not it's appropriate?
I said, I think it's the replacement is definitely going to be much more appropriate than what's there. Mr. Davini, would you like to give me a motion?
Sure. Okay. With respect to file number, this is Merriman Street, yes. A-012-20-21, where the property owner intends to remove a locust tree located between the porch, walkway, and the driveway in the front of this 3-family dwelling and replace it with a low-growth peony bush. I propose that we support the proposal as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. A motion was made by Jim Davini and properly seconded by Edward Kane. I will now call for a vote on each member. I'll start with Ed Kane. Ed, yay or nay on this motion, please?
Yay.
Ed Kane is a yay for this motion. Christopher Coretta, myself, I'm a yay for this motion. Jim Davini?
I'm a yay.
Jim Davini is a yay on this motion. Gerald Gam?
I am a yay.
Gerald Gam is a yay on this motion. And last but not least, Kirsten?
Yay.
Kirsten Solberg is a yay. It's a unanimous yay. Thank you very much for the presentation and for your time. We will officially close this case. Mr. Snyder will call case number 5 when he's ready.
Thank you.
The next case is case number 5, A-013-20-21 for a certificate of appropriateness. The applicant is Tom Zotko, who is the property owner of 94 Barrington Street, and the purpose is to legalize the installation of an approximately 20 square foot stamped concrete patio. This is an enforcement case, meaning that work was completed without approval by this board or obtaining a permit. So the board will be reviewing that tonight for legalization. All board members present have visited the site.
Thank you, Chris. Mr. Satko, are you there?
I am.
Great, thank you for attending. Mr. Satko, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And if you wanted to present your case.
First, let me start off. I know I was wrong by doing the work first. I know that now. I apologize, but cart before the horse. I can't do anything about that now than to try and get it legalized. I don't know if there's a whole lot I could explain that's not in the packet. I'm just trying to get it legalized now to make sure that everything's legal. I guess I'd probably be better at answering any questions. I've never done this before at this end, so I'm not sure what I should be doing.
Okay, no problem. You did have a pretty thorough case here in the packet. We appreciate that. What we'll do is go through all the board members and see if they have any questions for you. We're going to start with Kirsten.
Questions I don't think I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gam, do you have any questions for the applicant?
So your application so I guess the answer is yes. Your application is very straightforward, and it's a tricky case for us because it's a legalization case. Can you just talk through the decision to use colored stamped concrete rather than plain concrete?
To get it to look a little more like natural stone than just plain white concrete, and it kind of matched a neighbor, so I figured it would kind of fit in a little better. It exactly matches
the neighbor that you're referencing. Do they have stamped concrete or do they have flagstone?
Stamped concrete. The same concrete person, same. Theirs is just a walkway though.
And theirs is also stamped concrete and also colored?
Correct. Same color, same mason.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Gerald. Jim Davini, do you have any questions?
No, I have no questions.
Okay. Trying to, I guess I'll pass. I'll just wait until comments come. Ed Kane, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, thank you very much, members. Mr. Snyder, is there any public testimony?
There is one public testimony comment. I will just read the statement, which is longer than the comment. But this is public testimony for case A-013-20-21 for this hearing tonight. All written comments were due September 8th, 2020 at 5 p.m. for inclusion into the public record. All written comments received for this case will now be read into the record. Please note all comments were provided to the board in advance of this hearing. So the only comment that we received for this case was from Robert Good, and he noted that to whom it may concern, installing 20 square feet of stamped concrete patio, why is this a concern? Of course, it should be done. And that is the only public comment.
Okay, thank you. Would the applicant like to say anything to that? You don't have to, but you have the right to if you'd like.
No, I guess not. I don't, like I said, I don't really know what to do here, so I'm sorry. I apologize.
But don't be sorry. We'll get through it. It just,
Okay.
you know, you just have the right. You have the right to rebut if you'd like. Not a problem.
Okay.
Not a problem.
I have one question. This is Tom Worth from the Law Department, and I just wanted to ask the applicant whether he was replacing any stone or brick before for this patio, or whether it was just lawn.
It was, yeah, I think I'm on, yeah. It was a brick walkway from one means of egress all the way to the driveway. Also a brick walkway from the second means of egress, and it went to a patio landing and went to the driveway. So it was it was all brick walkway in connection with a patio. I don't know if I'm saying the right words, but I think the picture's kind of.
Tom, I think you can kind of see the original walkway over where we're showing and delineating in black here where the new one is. However, the walkway that was original and in brick is not represented on this.
Okay, but it just matches.
map.
It just matches what's next to it.
No, the original one was here. So this was where the original patio was. And then this was a walkway leading to the door. And then there was an additional walkway that sort of followed the same path, if I'm
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then there's an additional patio area off to the side here.
So the brick, can you tell me like what page the kind of brick is? Is it like on page 14 and 15? Okay, yeah. So it says previous patio materials. Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Snyder, you'll put up the deliberations page for us?
Yep, and we're ready to go into deliberations now.
Okay, great. Let's start with Mr. Kane. We'll go the other way. What are your thoughts on this, Ed?
It's a toughie. I'm not quite sure what my thoughts are on this. Had the applicant come to us in advance of doing this.
Ed, you're muted. I don't know if.
Oh, did you hear me? What I said?
Can hear you, but it's really.
Yeah, we're having some audio issues.
Yeah, it's like feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Try again.
Oh,
Okay, now you're good.
I was saying that had the applicant come to us in advance of doing this project, I don't believe we would have approved it as presented. And it's always tough when we have these legalization cases. So I'll kind of wait and see what the other board members think.
What are your thoughts on why we wouldn't have approved it?
Well, I think it has more of a suburban look to it than a preservation district look to it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. My thoughts are, although stamped concrete is part of our guidelines, I don't think it's appropriate at all for this house. I'm sorry. It's just how I feel. That's my job. I got to be honest. It just really does. It looks like it belongs in a suburban setting. Although it's very nice, very well done. I just don't think it's appropriate.
It's not visible at all from any other street or any residence other than my own after my neighbor finishes his fence.
Mr. Zetko, this part of the
Oh, I'm sorry.
deliberations are closed off from any comment.
But I will say that I could see it from the sidewalk. But you know, again, I'm just being honest. That's what we're here for. It's our job to be honest and tell us that say if we really feel it's appropriate. And I just don't think it's appropriate. Mr. Davini, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he mentioned that it was done exactly in keeping with something the neighbors had done, and I wonder if the neighbors ever came to us to discuss their installation, because he may have copied something that was unapproved. No, I agree. These legalization things are always very difficult because the work's been done, the work's been paid for, and now we're being asked to legalize something that we probably would not legalize had we had this in advance and discussed. So it puts us all into a very awkward situation, and I don't like being in this spot.
Okay. So I'm assuming you don't think it's appropriate for this site.
No, I don't. It just seems a little too modern, a little too jazzy or something that just doesn't seem to kind of blend into the neighborhood and even the surroundings.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Gann, what are your thoughts?
So I share the general concern. If this weren't a legalization case and this were brought to us for certificate of appropriateness, I would have no trouble saying this is inappropriate. I would have no trouble saying at that point that let's use a different material. Let's use flagstone if you want flagstone, but if we're concerned about tripping hazards, let's use concrete and just regular plain concrete. Regular plain concrete presents no tripping hazards and is a very traditional material for the East Avenue Preservation District. However, I feel constrained by two things. Partly that this is a legalization case, but I'm going to put that to one side because we shouldn't authorize something post hoc that we wouldn't have authorized up front. But what I'm also constrained by is that our current preservation design guidelines list stamped concrete as an appropriate material. So my inclination is to approve this, but to raise the issue for future cases and future enforcements of whether or not we should remove stamped concrete as a permissible material. I just feel like we're caught because it's listed as a permissible material. The homeowner has cited a neighbor, and I think it shouldn't be a permissible material in this preservation district. But I feel like we're sort of caught between our own guidelines and the fact that it's already been done.
I'd like to ask Mr. Worth his opinion, please, legal opinion.
So what Gerald is looking at or referencing is that in the guidelines approved by the Preservation Board, it says appropriate paving materials include asphalt, concrete, stamped asphalt, stamped concrete, resin pavement, brick, Belgian block, paving stones, cobblestones, and pea gravel. These guidelines are with regard to all of the districts and all the landmarks in the city. And I read that the listing of 10 different materials is just a menu of what might be appropriate, but that it's not a determination that each or any of those materials will be appropriate in every possible application.
Thank you. That's kind of how I feel. I mean, stamped concrete might work somewhere in our district, but I don't think it fits here personally. That's just my opinion. Were you done, Gerald? I'm sorry.
I am done. I'm very much torn. I think if I'm being asked straight out, is this appropriate for the East Avenue Preservation District? The answer is no.
Okay.
If we want a material that's not a tripping hazard, then we use regular concrete.
Okay. Kirsten?
I think I agree with a lot of what's been said. I would say there's a degree of grace that should be given because it is in our guidelines, but I don't think it's the stamped concrete in and of itself. I've seen it done well when you do like a stamped brick pattern on a very large scale in a streetscape, for example. But to see it at this scale, residential, it's the pattern of the flagstone going over the perimeter. It's just not a natural, even imitation, if you will. And I also think it's more than 20 square feet, if I had to get technical. So those are my thoughts.
Okay. Anyone else? Anything else come to mind? Would someone like to give me a motion based on the presentation, the way it sits? And we can vote on it? Gerald?
Okay, so I will make the motion regarding file number A-013-20-21, that we reject the request to legalize the installation of a stamped concrete patio and walkway.
Second.
Motion has been made by Gerald Gam and properly seconded by James Deviney. I will go down the list for a vote call. We'll start with Ed King. Ed, do you yay or nay on this motion?
Yay.
Yay. Next is me. I would say yay on this motion as well. Jim Deviney?
Okay. It was a negative motion, so yay is the appropriate answer to that.
Okay.
Yay is to reject the proposal.
To reject the proposal. Is that how you feel, Jim?
That's what I was trying to make sure I was understanding the proper way to address that.
All right, good. It's good to clear it up. Mr. Gam?
Yay.
Gerald Gam is yay. And Kirsten? Solberg?
Yay too.
Kirsten Solberg is yay too. Okay, so it's unanimous. We unanimously reject it. I apologize. I'm sorry. I wish we could make it work.
And Chris, was there a second on the motion?
There was. Jim Deviney seconded it. Okay, that officially closes the case. Thank you very much. Mr. Snyder will call case 6 when he is ready.
So case 6, A-014-20-21 is a new application for a certificate of appropriateness. The applicant is Brian Vogel, the property owner of 1273 Park Avenue. And the purpose is to construct a 20-foot by 24-foot accessory shed and greenhouse structure in the rear yard of this single-family dwelling. All board members present have visited the site.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Vogel, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Mr. Vogel, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. We're ready for your presentation, or however you want to give it to us.
Okay, great. Well, I'll start by sharing my screen so I can bring up the document if Chris would give me sharing permission, because I know there was some questions about the color of the building, so I can address those. But I'll
So
just give.
Brian, I can't provide you permissions to share, but I can show the document on my computer. So if you
Okay,
want to
great.
direct me, and then I can do that.
Yeah, I did paste a link into the presenter chat, the panel chat when I first joined the meeting. Let me just go ahead and paste the link in again. Okay,
So you want me to bring that link up?
Yes, please. So I'll just go ahead and kind of give a recap of the project. Like Chris said, we're looking to build a 20 by 24 foot accessory structure. The goal is to have the building closely match the house and the existing structures in the neighborhood, and kind of cover up some of that concrete block. And the property backs up to 490. So there's that sound barrier wall there. So it would be nice to have that structure in front of it. And it's a dual purpose building. It's going to function as a storage shed and workshop, as well as a greenhouse. And I'll wait till the document comes up here. So if we could scroll to the rendering, that should be the next, yeah, right there. So the colors of the rendering aren't exactly what the house looks like, but they're pretty close. So the primary colors of the house are a tavern taupe on the shingles, and then sort of like a dark blue color for the trim, and then a secondary trim color is red, and the doors in the house are red. It's more of a kind of like a wine burgundy color red. So that's what the paint colors are going to be. They're going to be exactly what's used on the house, and the trim is going to be wood, and the siding is going to be cedar shake shingles. On the greenhouse side, if we could maybe flip to the elevation drawings. Okay, that would be in the.
Do you want me to go to the other document?
Yes, please. Yeah, sorry about that. So the west side of the structure is where the greenhouse portion is going to be. And for that, we selected windows that would closely match the existing windows on the house. So the existing windows on the house are a panel design, and we were able to find windows that closely match the appearance of the house. And since it's going to be a greenhouse, it's a high moisture environment. The only suitable options for such an environment really are vinyl or aluminum. And vinyl was selected just because it was appearance wise the most pleasing. I think everything on this side is pretty straightforward. There's the west upper west gable there is a polycarbonate panel, which is detailed. The materials are detailed in the appendix. I think that pretty much covers most of the things from a high level that I wanted to cover. Besides the roof, there's two options for the roof. My preference is for a metal roof, just for overall maintenance and durability and environmental concerns, rather than having it should last 40 years, as opposed to the using the same architectural shingles that are on the house now. So that's my preference there, and I think the brown color would look really nice and kind of play off the existing house.
Okay. Thank you for such a detailed presentation. It's much appreciated. We're going to go through to each member and ask to see if they have any questions for you. We'll start with Ed Kane. Do you have any questions for the applicant, Ed?
Yeah, just one question. With the metal roof, could you tell a little more about what it would look like?
Yeah, so if we go back to the rendering, the design document proposal, that's what it would look like. So actually, okay, it's not on the screen yet, sorry.
You will see it.
Yeah,
see.
I can we zoom in a little bit maybe? It sort of looks a little bit funky, but maybe that's just, yeah, so there's, basically ribs every so many inches. There's actually a profile drawing in the appendix of what that looks like. There's also a house nearby that has pretty similar, if not exactly the same, to what I'm looking at. Metal Sales has a few different profiles. I chose that one because it's the one that I like the best, but certainly open to changing that. I mean, everybody has their their own opinions and thoughts, and I'd be interested to hear what the board thinks.
Okay. Had any other
So-
questions? Was that answered for you?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
I really don't have any questions. It was pretty well detailed. I think it's a really cool project. I like it very much.
Thank you.
Jim Davini?
I have no questions. I like this proposal.
Okay. Gerald, any questions?
Okay, so Brian, I do have a couple of questions. First of all, the doors. So you said the red color of the doors is to match the burgundy color of the doors on the house. Are all the doors on the house burgundy or just the main entry door?
Yes. All the doors except the bulkhead doors on the basement, those are matching the shingle color of
Okay.
the siding.
So I was just going to raise that. I mean, for me, this is not a deal breaker at all. I think this is a wonderful project and very much consistent with the standards of the district. My personal preference would be to treat these more like basement doors and sort of have them fade away rather than have them be so dramatic. But I think that's more preference than something that I would impose as a requirement. But they just feel like a very dramatic treatment for doors on what's effectively a shed or a garage. So I guess I might at least raise the possibility of giving you the freedom to paint them the body color rather than a dramatic door color, but that isn't my main question. My main question, the windows. So we very, very rarely approve vinyl windows in the preservation district. And I understand the argument here against wood windows because it's going to be a greenhouse and it'll be warm and moist. But could you do composite windows or fiberglass windows, which give the appearance of wood, but I suspect would be every bit as durable as a vinyl window?
I guess it's certainly a possibility to investigate that. Obviously, a big concern too is just cost of construction and budget. So I was trying to kind of, find a middle ground between something that's affordable and would kind of provide the overall appearance of, something that kind of calls back to something that might have been built back in that time period. And, if you look around in the neighborhood, there's all sorts of examples of modern uses of materials. I think the architectural shingles on the roofs are a great example. I mean, back when these houses were built, they all had cedar shake roofs, right? And now we're using asphalt shingles just because they're so much cheaper to install and provide better performance. So I think those kinds of considerations need to be, thought about too when we're building structures. And the other thing is that these windows aren't even going to be visible from the road. They're only visible from the side. And as you can see from the rendering there, there's a hedge that runs along the side of the property. So really the only one that's going to be seeing these windows up close is me. And I'm okay with the windows. I like the way they look. And also, I've already run the proposal by my neighbors, and everyone's very excited about the structure. They like the way it looks. They're happy that something's going to be covering up the wall in the back too.
So Brian, and I appreciate all the additional information you're giving, but I had actually, I think a very simple question, which is, would composite windows or fiberglass windows work as well as vinyl with the moisture? The little bit of research I did suggested they would. I'm sorry, what?
I'd have to research that.
Okay, because and so just to repeat my concern, we routinely turn down requests to install vinyl windows, and even though these would be behind your house and not visible to the street, it would create a precedent. And so the precedent for me would make sense only if there were no other possible substitute that would work for greenhouse. My other question was about the roof, which you've already raised. I have a preference for the structure emulating the house and emulating the features of the house. And you're doing that with color, you're doing it with the cedar siding. That's also my preference for the windows, is to get a window material that looks like wood windows. Is there any reason regarding the greenhouse that the metal roof is better than these same architectural shingles you have in the house?
Not for the greenhouse, no. It's just I think it's a better material overall, just because of the longevity of it, and not having to replace it for 40 years.
Okay. Okay, Brian, thank you so much.
Thank you, Gerald. Kirsten, questions?
Yes. What's the material of the doors? Are they wood?
Yes, they're going to be custom made.
Okay, so along that vein and back to what Gerald was saying, if you have wood doors and vinyl windows, that theory of moisture doesn't really hold up. I think that there's no reason, just in terms of moisture, that these can't be vinyl clad windows, and I think that they should be vinyl clad windows. Modern windows are all thermally broken, whether they're vinyl or vinyl clad, they're going to perform the same. So being the historic district and what we typically uphold, I think that we should discuss that. That is a change from what you're proposing. I also noticed that the windows on your house are 6/1, meaning the grids are 6 and then a full pane underneath. I'd be interested to know if you'd be interested in adjusting that with your window design.
I guess, again, for me, it comes down to budget. I'd really like to be able to move forward with this, but if
I'm sorry to interrupt, but Tom Worth, did you want to talk about budgets? And
so the rules for the preservation board, the actual ordinance provides that costs can only be a factor if you have two equally appropriate materials, and that this board is not supposed to make a decision and prefer one material over the other because it is less costly if the more costly material is more appropriate. And there's an option if it created a financial hardship, you could present numbers to the board at another meeting and ask for a financial hardship. But at this initial review, we can't consider cost except if they're to two equally appropriate materials.
What if the windows were replaced with polycarbonate panels instead of windows, which would look more like a traditional greenhouse from the time period?
I think we'd have to see the whole thing.
Yeah, we'd have
If I were to jump in, since I was the one who first started talking about windows, I think that would be a material change to the proposals. That might mean putting it on hold for a month and you bringing us a new proposal. But my gut tells me if it's going to be more like a traditional greenhouse, the odds are good that we would like it, but we can't say until we see the proposal.
I agree.
Okay.
Would that be something you'd be willing to do, Brian?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, okay, thank you. Kirsten, any other questions, or board members, any other questions?
No other questions.
Okay. Thank you very much, Brian. Mr. Snyder, any public testimony?
There is, let me get to. This is the public testimony for A-014-20-21, 1273 Park Avenue. For the September 9, 2020 hearing of the Rochester Preservation Board, all written comments were due September 8th, 2020 at 5 p.m. for inclusion into the public record. All written comments received for this case will now be read into the record. Please note that all comments were provided to the board in advance of this hearing. Our first comment comes from Anthony Douglas at 1283 Park Avenue. Dear Mr. Christopher Snyder, as a resident of Park Avenue, I am writing to express my support for neighbor Brian Vogel, who resides at 1273 Park Avenue, in his pursuit to construct a backyard garage. Brian has approached us, his neighbors, and communicated his wishes to construct a garage and asked us about our feelings and concerns regarding the project. He provided us with blueprints for his project. I have reviewed them and I feel Brian's garage would be an excellent fit for our neighborhood. He has really done a great job with the details. I really enjoy the cedar shingles that would fit with this house and several houses of the neighborhood. I believe that Brian Vogel's garage would not only benefit him, but would be beneficial to our neighborhood aesthetically and economic as an asset to the real estate value of Brian's and the residences adjoining Brian's property. I will not mind standing in my backyard and looking at Brian's future garage. Sincerely, Anthony Douglas. The next comment comes from Brandon Wass. To whom it may concern, I am writing in support of my neighbor at 1273 Park Avenue. Brian has shared his architectural drawings for approval, and I am writing in support of this project. I live at 1279 Park Avenue, which is the house to the left. If there is any other way I can support this effort, please do not hesitate to contact me at this email or via my cell phone. Thank you. The next is from Todd Wicks. Dear Preservation Board, this is in regards to request made by Brian Vogel at 1273 Park Avenue to put up a shed and greenhouse on his property. We are the owner-occupied neighbor at 1263 Park Avenue, and our backyard looks directly into the backyard of 1273 Park Avenue. We are in favor of this project and support the Vogels. This structure would help cover the large concrete retaining wall and help beautify our backyard view. We commend the Vogels for using personal funds to help gentrify our neighborhood. The Vogels take pride in a well-groomed lawn and maintaining their property, and we are convinced that this endeavor would be done professionally and would be cared for in the years to come. Please feel free to contact us if you have any further questions. Those were all of the public comments. We will go into the deliberations now. During deliberation, there is no participation by applicants or the public.
One caveat is that the applicant is entitled to, if he has anything to comment or add to on what was said in those letters.
Yes, I apologize. I jumped ahead. Thanks, Tom, for catching that. Yeah, so if Brian, you have 5 minutes to speak to any of the comments that were provided in public testimony.
Nothing to add, but like the letters express, I talked to my neighbors and everyone was really enthusiastic about this project.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Brian. We appreciate your time. We're going to deliberate. We'll start with Kirsten. What are your thoughts?
So I think I expressed some of my thoughts. I think just in keeping with what we have to uphold at the Preservation Board, that if you have a window that looks like a window, it has to be our typical clad wood windows. I do think that they have to be a 6/1. If we're going that, I think it's a great little project. I don't want to bring it down in that fashion, but I think that that's one item that we need to uphold. In terms of the roof, I like the look of the metal roof. I also see good reason to keep with what the main house is, but I would leave that up to the owner. There was mention of the use of polycarbonate. Obviously, in a traditional greenhouse, there wouldn't be polycarbonate, there'd be glass. So I think that it's being used in a non-traditional way. So somehow I don't have a problem with it in this use, but I know that the owner had mentioned, you know, if they had made this whole thing out of polycarbonate, I think we'd have a bigger problem with it. So just to, you know, think through, I guess what I'm trying to say is if you're using a non-traditional material in a non-traditional way, that's more acceptable than using a non-traditional material in a traditional way. So just to think through how it's being used. If he were to come back with a different proposal. But I think that summarizes my comments, really focusing just on the windows.
Okay, so to summarize, you'd like to see something along our guidelines in the windows, pretty much. That's really the only detail, in your opinion. Okay. Kirsten, I think you're muted, but. Okay, Gerald Gam, your thoughts, please.
Okay, so my thoughts are, I love this project. I want to start there. I love the project. I love the greenhouse. I love the shed. I love the design. I think it's very much in keeping with the neighborhood overall. It's a beautiful home, and I think this carries the beauty of the home into the rear yard. So my bottom line is I'm enthusiastic about the project, and I give the homeowners great credit for bringing this forward. As far as the details of the project go, I like almost everything about it. I like the cedar siding. I like the wood doors. I like the use of color and the color being carried over from the house. As Kirsten said, I'm okay with the metal roof. I am sort of more partial to carrying over the roof from the house, but I would not oppose the metal roof if Brian if Brian wants the metal roof. My concern again is with the windows. There are very few circumstances where I can imagine vinyl windows being appropriate in the East Avenue Preservation District. And offhand, I can't think of any time a vinyl window would be appropriate unless some great architect built a house using only vinyl windows 30 years ago. So I would support this proposal if we modified it and required either wood-clad windows, clad with vinyl or clad with aluminum, or we modified it for fiberglass windows or composite windows, or I would put it on hold, given that I think there's some concern with modifying it by the homeowner. I would put it on hold and invite the homeowner to come back, either to propose a modification in windows or to propose a new treatment for bringing light into the greenhouse. I would, in that case, I would personally be open to an argument for polycarbonate, because that, yes, Kirsten's right, that didn't exist 100 years ago, but on the other hand, if to an outside observer it looks like glass and it's going to be sturdier than glass, I would at least be open to considering that as an alternative. So I would either modify it to change the windows, but the sense I'm getting from the homeowner is that we'd be better off just putting this on hold and inviting the homeowner to come back in a month.
Gerald, how do you feel about the detail of 6/1 to add that? I think that's a great.
I think Kirsten's completely right. If we're going with windows, that detail matters.
Okay, I would agree. Okay, Mr. Davini, what are your thoughts, please?
I agree 100% with everything that Gerald just said. I like the idea of it. That's almost like a little hidden garden back there behind that house with the expressway wall, and it's just not really visible much from the street. But I do agree that we do have these guidelines to work with within the preservation board as far as what the materials are for windows and what how they should be constructed, and that's a sticking point for me. But other than that, I'm very enthusiastic about what Mr. Vogel is doing here.
I'm just getting a note here. I don't know if everyone's seen it from Brian. He wrote, the upper part of the house has 1/1 windows. Would it make sense to just go with 1/1 instead of 1/6, 6/1, excuse me? 1/1 would be better for light transmission.
I don't think that the few muntins are gonna make a difference with light transmission, but I mean, I would say either one, as long as it mimics what's in the house. I think it looks a little bit nicer if it's the 6/1, but as long as it's in keeping with the house.
Yeah, I'm with Kirsten. So I'm with Kirsten on that, is as long as it's in keeping with the house. If part of the house has 1/1s, these are side windows on a rear structure, I'd be fine with 1/1s.
Okay. Jim, how about you?
Yeah, I'd be comfortable with 1/1.
Okay. Did you have any other thoughts or comments, Jim, before we go to?
No, as I say, Gerald pretty much expressed everything that I had to say.
Okay. I'd also like to say this is a great project, and I really appreciate all the thought and love that's gone into this. It really shows. You did a great job. So I totally agree with my colleagues on the windows. Small detail, but it would make a huge difference. I love the way it covers up that horrible wall in the back. I love the little stone pathway. Did a great job, but I would strongly recommend doing the windows. Let me ask you a question, Brian. Would you be would you rather come back to the board? Would you rather have us put it in our motion to change the windows? What works for you? Do you want to get this thing going quickly?
It sounds like the just redoing that side of the greenhouse with polycarbonate might be an appropriate option. In that case,
I don't mean to interrupt, but I think we'd have to see it. And so that's fine. If you want to come back next, we can hold it. And you want to come back next month and we can look at it. That's fine.
Is it possible to send the drawings ahead of time to get feedback, or no?
No.
No, they're not.
Okay.
On the board with the whole board. And the
So
public.
there's also an option you could approve like all the other elements of the project and just have them come back on the windows, and that would do justice to all of the careful deliberations you've done on the rest of the structure. So that's an option too. You could approve everything except the windows.
Yeah, I want to say, as the person who first asked about the windows, I like what Tom's suggesting. I would feel very comfortable approving the entire project except for the windows.
Well, yeah, but I was trying to save him some time, which is why I asked, because if we approve it with the specific window in our motion, he could get going right away with that. But if he wants to show us the polycarbonate, he's going to have to come back. It's going to just take him a little more time, but that's fine. However you want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, but Chris, he's going to have to, he doesn't have in front of us any other material window either.
No, but we've done it before, where if we said, if he did a FiberMax type of window, a specific brand, we could possibly do that. But that's fine. We could have him come back too. Whatever. Okay. Ed Kane, what are your thoughts, comments?
My thoughts are that it's a great project and we're almost there, short of just a little window tweak.
Okay. Who'd like to give me a motion? Mr. Gam?
Yeah, let me give a motion. Okay, so this is regarding file number A-014-20-21 at 1273 Park Avenue to construct an accessory shed/greenhouse structure in the rear yard of the single-family dwelling. That the application be approved as submitted, except the approval does not extend to the windows. The applicant is required to return to the Preservation Board with additional information about how to treat the area of the shed/greenhouse that in the proposal is identified as windows.
I'll second.
A motion has been made by Gerald Gam and properly seconded by Jim Deviney. I will call for a vote. We'll go one by one. We'll start with Ed Kane. Are you yay or nay on this motion, Ed?
Yay.
Ed Kane is a yay. Christopher Coretta is a yay on this motion. Jim Davini?
Yay.
Jim Davini is a yay on this motion. Gerald Gam?
I am a yay.
Gerald Gam is a yay on this motion. And Kirsten Solberg?
Yay.
Kirsten Solberg is a yay. That is a unanimous vote. Very good. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Vogel. We'll officially close this case. Mr. Snyder will introduce case number 7 and our last case when he is ready.
So the last case tonight is case 7, which is file number A-015-20-21. The applicant is, it's for a certificate of appropriateness, and the applicant is Sean Grass, this property owner of 45 Oliver Street. The purpose is to remove a Chinese elm tree at the rear of the property adjacent to the principal structure on this property and to plant an ornamental dogwood tree in its place. There is a typo here that I'm reading that was actually corrected on the online available. I'm not sure if the board members got it, but that instead of the rear, it's supposed to be saying the side of the property, because it's not technically at the rear, it's at the side of the property. All board members have also visited the site. All board members present have visited the site.
Thank you, Chris. Mr. Grass, are you with us?
I believe so.
Okay. Thank you for being here tonight. And thank you for being so patient. You're our last case. Do you, Mr. Grass, solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And we're ready for your application presentation.
Thank you. And I'll try to be brief because I know you have been at this for quite a while, and I've been with you every step of the way listening in. So it's been a long evening. I think that in most respects, the application probably speaks for itself. We obviously have a significant problem with a very large Chinese elm tree that was either planted once upon a time or was let to grow way too close to the house. And now the tree is not in the best shape, but the bigger issue is that according to both arborists and masons whom we've had in to evaluate the tree, evaluate the condition of the foundation on that side of our house, multiple people have now given us the opinion, both arborists and masons, that they think that the taproot of the tree is very likely resting against the side of the foundation, and that has contributed to the sort of erosion that we're seeing on that south side of the house. There are pictures of that in the report, and the concern that the masons in particular have is, that they don't feel comfortable going in and excavating, doing further excavation and starting to actually replace sections of the foundation on this side. If in fact the taproot is resting, because the tree leans away from the house, and there's a concern that they will destabilize the tree by doing that. And so we can't really address the problems with the foundation as we understand it unless and until the tree is addressed. And so as much as we hate the idea of cutting down such a big stately old elm tree, I don't feel that we have much of a choice. The tree is less than 5 feet from the south wall of the house, and that's far too close for a tree of that size. Other than that, I'll leave it to the report to speak for itself, except in 2 respects. One, because I listened in on the pre-meeting, I know one of the questions that was raised was that we were trying to sort of escalate this to a state of emergency so that we can get this through, because we don't have the supporting documentation. That would have been ideal, I think, in a case like this. So I wanted to speak to that just for a second. We first became aware that we had a much more substantial problem with water getting into the basement, and possibly a foundation problem, in late June after a particularly heavy rainstorm. We had our first mason come in on July 4th. We had another basement company come in, Halco, on, I think it was July the 7th. That they were not what we were looking for. We decided then to move on and go with proper masons and get further opinions on this. And once it became clear from what they were telling us that the tree was a big issue, then we moved on to consulting with a couple of arborists to find out what we could find out about the tree. I first made contact, or attempted to, with Chris in an email on August the 5th. I didn't hear back right away. And Chris, this is not to throw you under the bus, buddy, I promise. Everyone's working under impossible circumstances at this point. But my email trail shows that I first contacted Chris on August 5th, which was a Wednesday. I didn't hear back right away. I called on August the 10th. We finally spoke on the phone on August the 11th. And it was at that point that he said, normally you'd have, I think it was going to be typically until August 18th or 19th to put the paperwork together, but I'm going on vacation. And so I need this stuff by the end of the day tomorrow. If it's to make it in for the preservation board by, in time for the September the 9th meeting. So in the sense that, and Chris, if I have any of that wrong, please feel free to correct me when there's a moment. But there is a little bit of urgency to this in the sense that the basement is a disaster area, which we could sort of live with, but there's also some uncertainty about the extent of the damage to the foundation on that side, whether it's going to have to be completely re-poured, whether they're going to be able to do it at, take a slightly less entire approach to replacing or perhaps supplementing with a knee wall. They can't know until they excavate further, both on the outside and on the inside, and the tree is a hindrance to that. And so there is some urgency in the sense of trying to move this along so that we can do that stuff before the weather really starts setting in. I was concerned that if we were waiting until the October meeting and then 15 business days to perhaps have the permit issued or to find out what the next steps are, we're at Halloween and we still don't have the tree out and we still have these other things to do. So I appreciate that the lack of paperwork is not ideal. I did offer in the report itself to provide additional paperwork. I said to Chris when we spoke on the phone that I was willing to do that if it was still possible to supplement this in the run up to this meeting. And I was not encouraged to do that. So I didn't pursue it. If the board still wishes to have further documentation, I'm sure that I could procure it. In the absence of that, I tried to be very specific about which masons we had consulted and which arborists we had consulted, because I felt like that was the best I could do under the circumstances. The only other thing that I think came up in your pre-meeting was the question of whether it was wise to come back in with another tree if we do in fact take out this Chinese elm, because we say in the proposal that we're willing to come back in and plant a dogwood in its place. We do not have to do that. We are not wedded to that idea. We frankly thought that it would be a nice gesture, perhaps, to replant something in place of a very large tree that we were taking down. But if the board feels like that would be unwise, we think a dogwood would be safe because we would be planting it about 10 feet out from the foundation. It doesn't get nearly as big as the elm. And our understanding is that as long as you're beyond 6 feet, say, from the foundation of the house, a dogwood is probably fine, at least in terms of the root system, but we don't have to come back in and plant anything of the kind there. We thought that that would actually be helpful to the proposal, but we are open to suggestion. Other than that, I have nothing else to say. I think the proposal can speak for itself largely.
Okay, well, great. Thank you very much for your presentation. We'll go around to the members, see if they have any questions for you. We'll start with Kirsten. Kirsten, do you have any questions?
Nope. I don't have any questions. I think that the application is pretty complete and comprehensible. I think you answered my question about the dogwood. So thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. Gerald, any questions?
I have no questions at all. I thought it was an excellent proposal.
Okay, thank you. Jim Davini?
Yes, I was the one in the pre-production or the pre-meeting who asked about additional paperwork from an arborist, but quite frankly, it wasn't until the gentleman just explained about the fact that there would be excavation going on outside the wall, the retaining wall as well, and that the tree just can't possibly survive that. So yes, I think the tree has to go. And otherwise, I have no objection to this this proposal at all, and I will support it fully.
Okay, thank you. I have no questions. Ed Kane?
Yeah, you broke up a little bit. I didn't quite get everything you said about the dogwood. Was your plan to put it in the same location or to move it forward?
What I was saying about the dogwood is that honestly, we're open to suggestion. We're not committed to replacing that with a dogwood if the board thinks that that would be unwise. We certainly could move it forward. We feel badly for the neighbors who use that driveway. We have an elderly neighbor who goes out with his walker and uses that driveway. That's not our driveway, that belongs to the next door neighbor. And he uses his walker out there with a nurse assistant to try to walk back and forth. So we'd like to reshade it, I guess, if we could, to sort of, you know, make it more livable, because the neighbors are going to really miss the shade on that side. But we certainly have no interest in jeopardizing the house all over again. So we're open to suggestion on that front.
Well, my suggestion is if you do replace it, you might be better to move it closer to the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be a great distance closer, just so you don't have the problem down the road with roots again.
Yeah. Well, you can see if you came by the property, you've seen how we have all of these downspouts run out into the yard. We have some other drainage issues on the property because of some negative grading back towards the house. And we're looking into the code compliance of the next door neighbor's driveway, unfortunately, because it's not curbed high enough to keep the runoff from coming off their driveway into our yard. So we have some other things. Once we get all of that straightened out and address the other drainage problems on that side of the house and figure out what's what, I think we'll have a better sense of what it might be appropriate to plant there, how much water it's likely to get, and, you know, where we can put it, frankly.
That was all I had for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Ed. Let's see, Mr. Snyder, any public testimony?
There is no public testimony for this case.
Okay.
So we will move on to the deliberations. We don't have a page for that here, but I will just read that statement. We will now start the deliberations for this case. During deliberations, board members review cases and take action by voting. There is no participation by applicants or the public.
Thank you, sir. So let's start with Kirsten. Your comments, please. What are your thoughts on this?
I've got no problem with what's proposed here. I think it makes a lot of sense, and it's important to preserve the foundation of a house. My only comment is I don't think that the dogwood needs to be planted literally in place. I agree that it, when you buy the tree, ask them what the appropriate distance is from the house. Done.
Okay, thank you. How about Gerald?
I agree completely with Kirsten. This is a very simple, straightforward, reasonable proposal. This tree needs to come out to save the house. And I also entirely agree that a new tree should be put in. I think dogwood is very appropriate for the site. And like Kirsten said, pull it back a little bit from the house. So it has room to grow. But the exact placement of the dogwood, I would leave to the homeowner.
Okay, thank you. Jim Devaney?
I agree with both Kirsten and Gerald. I think that the proposal is fine, and I fully understand now the need to get rid of that tree. So I support the proposal as stated.
Thank you, Jim. I fully support this proposal as stated. The tree's too big for where it is. It doesn't look right. So I would like to see a dogwood pulled back a little bit as well. I think that would be great. Ed?
I pretty much agree with everything that's been said.
Okay, very good. Would someone like to give me a motion? Who hasn't given me a motion yet? I think you all have. Kirsten, how about a motion?
Sure,
You're
I'll
not
give you
with
a
us-
motion.
You're not with us as often. We can make it up.
I'd like to motion for case number A-0152021, 45 Oliver Street, that we approve the removal of a Chinese elm at the side of the property, and that we approve a new dogwood tree to be planted in the general vicinity of the previous tree at the homeowner's discretion.
Second,
Thank you, Ed. A motion has been made by Kirsten Solberg and seconded by Edward Kane. I will call it a vote. We'll start with Kirsten. Do you
Aye.
vote- you
Aye,
vote-
yay.
You yay for this motion? Okay, thank you. Gerald Gam,
I am a yay.
he is a yay. Gerald Gam is a yay for this motion. Jim Devaney,
Yay.
also a yay for this motion. Christopher Coretta, that's me. I am a yay for this motion. And last but not least, Ed Kane.
I too am a yay.
Ed Kane is a yay, which is a unanimous vote for yay. Thank you very much for your patience. We
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
everyone.
We officially close that case. And Chris, is it okay to officially close the meeting?
Yeah, I will just read the conclusion statement here, the board closing statement. This concludes Rochester Preservation Board public hearing. We thank all applicants and citizens. The next scheduled hearing will be held on October 7th, 2020. This hearing is scheduled to be a virtual meeting and will be streamed live on the mayor's office's YouTube page. Any changes to the time or location of this meeting will be posted on the city's website. If you have any comments or questions related to the Rochester Preservation Board or this hearing, please email staff at preservationboard@cityofrochester.gov. Shown, well, I guess it's not shown on the screen. Staff will have, and that, oh, that's it. Sorry for the anticlimactic ending there.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
You.
Thank you. Have a good
Good
one.
night.
Good night.
Good night.